Welcome back, Goblin Chefs. It's APGAINS. There's going to be some hard truths in this video. Obviously, we've always had the best farming guides for Galaxy of Heroes and now for Heroes of Middle-earth. This is going to be a free-to-play guide. Yes, I do have an account that spends money, two that don't. Obviously, a focus group with a bunch of other free-to-play players trying to figure out what the best strategy is now. As stuff gets updated, of course, this is going to be the best place to get day one unlock guides, newest information. So you're going to want to subscribe. But we're going to talk about right now, if you're starting, 2 weeks ago and you're trying to catch up to the meta or be the most efficient player you can, or if you're starting a couple weeks after this video comes out, whatever it is, I'm going to tell you exactly what you should be doing to maximize your resources, maximize your farming. Make sure you have the most competitive edge that you can have in this game without spending any money whatsoever. And yes, I understand there's not a lot of content right now, but we do know roughly what's coming publicly and then privately some other stuff as well. So we're going to kind of help lead you into that and make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck as a free-to-play player. So to start out, there is one legendary that is coming to the game as of the time of this video. It is Elrond. We will talk about how the free-to-play farm revolves with, around, sideways Elrond, because it's going to be the best team in the game. There's, of course, Nazgul meta coming in the future and stuff like that. There's raids on the lookout. There's inter-guild PvP, PvE kind of stuff that we have to worry about as well. And we're going to take all that into consideration to make sure that we're capitalizing everything we can and not just being one of those people that's going to tell you, hey, farm the best, pick 5 characters for your arena team, put everything there and do nothing else. Obviously, that's not a fantastic strategy, so we want to avoid stuff like that. To start off with, how do we acquire characters? Well, you can acquire characters in a number of ways. You can get them through light and hard, light side and dark side hard campaigns. So if you go to the hard over here, and I know a lot of this is basic, so bear with me, you can see nodes. Same thing with dark. There's also characters that you can acquire a lot faster in the guild campaign. And a lot of these characters are going to be very important. And what's better is there's no cap to how many times you can farm this node. For a hard node, you can only farm it 5 times. Occasionally, you'll do a 25 gem refresh, so you can get a second time. We'll talk about what characters you should do that, because there is some efficiency to be learned there. But for the guild, it's just as much guild energy as you have. You can do them all at once. Now, realistically, especially with guild, never sim the whole thing that you're allowed to. It'll give you the option to sim 20 at a time, especially as you're a new player and you're leveling up a lot and they're giving you a bunch of energy. Don't do that. Sim in 4, 5s, or 6s. It's going to give you the best chance to get the best drops. You don't want to waste energy and stuff like that, so make sure that's something you're doing. You can also get characters from supplies. There's the pay-to-win characters right here, which we'll talk about, potentially being useful for free-to-play players. There's characters you can get here in the arena. We'll talk about some of them are very good. There's the 2 characters in challenges, Halbrand and Bolg, which were previously listed as S tier, but we've realized they're not exactly as great as we used to think. And then there's a couple characters you can get down here in the guild supply store as well. So how are we going to formulate all of this stuff? Really quickly, before I tell you that, we need to hear a word from our sponsor, which is me. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, the Patreon members. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, keeping those really annoying-ass mobile game ads far, far away from this YouTube channel. If you guys would either like to support the channel or get roster reviews, join the Patreon-exclusive Discord, or potentially join the Whale Hunters Club, you guys can do that with the Patreon link in the description. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. Now back to the video. Wow, thank you, me, for talking about whatever it is. I don't know what I said there because I haven't recorded it yet, but I'm sure it was insightful and great, and you guys all loved it. Okay, so characters we want to farm is going to be broken down by plug-and-play characters in teams. And I'm going to sort by power because there's currently a glitch where stuff isn't sorted by power, and it's very annoying. The first, call it 20 or so levels, you're going to be able to achieve in your first day. And those are going to be very beneficial for you and very impactful for how the rest of your experience in the first week or so is going to go, but they're not the worst thing in the world. So if you don't do things fantastically in your first day, don't worry, there's plenty of time to recover. So what are good characters in the game right now? We'll talk about all of the characters that are good, characters that are kind of good, characters that are kind of meant to be avoided, and talk about the order in which we're going to farm them. So, characters that are good are essentially going to be characters that you see that are powerful on plenty of players' accounts. Characters like Ironhide are very good. They fall into the plug-and-play category to AoEs. We're in kind of an AoE meta right now. If this video comes out and you're watching it 3 or 4 months in the future, definitely go back onto the channel, see an updated version of this, because metas do change. But for right now, the month of, call it June and July, this is going to be pretty accurate. Characters that do high damage with big AoEs are going to be useful. Gaz is definitely probably the better of all of the plug-and-play characters at the moment. There's synergy characters. We talk about squads like Eothen, Eomer, and Eowyn. She's got a leadership that gives them more crit chance, Aomer is tied for second highest damage. He assists. He's a huge damage output. You get utility and Aothane giving you counterattacks as well as a provoke for a couple of turns to kind of draw the fire away. These 3 characters are going to be the 3 characters that you're really going to want to focus on for the first couple of days. Now, I understand a lot of people are going to say APGAINS, elves. We don't know for sure, but based on the past, CG likes to come out with a legendary character, and then you usually wait one of 2 things. Either it's 3 to 4 months before the character comes back again, and this game hasn't even been out for that long, so it's way down in the future, or it's around 6 months for the character to come back. So I'm going to play with the assumption that Elrond is going to come out at the end of June, early July, and then it's going to be either somewhere in the range of 3 to 6 months before his event comes back. Now, really quickly, it's very important to note for those of you guys who are interested about Elrond, and we'll definitely cover him in this video, his characters are relatively easy to farm. You're going to get 2 of them at 3 stars marquees. If you're starting late, you're going to have missed the AON event, and that's fine. Usually what happens is about 2 to 3 months after a character is a marquee character where it's exclusively, pay to win, the characters come onto a node and you can free-to-play farm them. And we'll talk about how that kind of changes how this farming works versus potentially some other stuff that you can do, and we'll talk about all that stuff. So because that's going to be kind of a longer-term investment, a more long-term play, that's going to definitely help boost your roster. We still want to be able to progress in the game, right? We want to be able to progress into the guild nodes so we can actually get to some valuable nodes, progress in the light nodes so we can get valuable gear to help upgrade our characters. So the 3 Rohan characters are definitely going to be where you're going to want to focus. And yes, I get it. They're going to be passed up by the Nazgul. They're going to be passed up by Elrond. That's totally fine. The one thing you need to know is you do not want to focus on just one team this game. Capital games are very balanced as far as, characters and counters and all that stuff, but what you do want, especially as a free-to-play player where you can't have everything, you want to identify the good teams and have a lot of them, right? Because if the raid comes out and you have one team and you can't do enough damage in that raid with your one team, you get one battle and that's it, right? If you have a couple of weaker teams, say 3 of them, you are likely going to do more damage with 3 slightly weaker teams than you are with one team where you really grind it out, taking those characters from 7 to 8, right? Every gear is incrementally harder, right? Like gear, 1 to 2 is easy, and getting up to gear 5 is relatively easy, but 5 to 6 is a little challenging, and 6 to 7 is very hard, and 7 to 8 is really, really difficult. Especially if you're not spending money. Don't even get me started on all the fucking crystals it's going to take to do all that stuff. So it's very important that you identify kind of a stopping point. And when I talk about stopping point, I mean this is a safe place to bring a character that you know is good, but you don't really want to focus too much on. And that stopping point is 3 stars, level 30, gear 5. If you identify a character as good, like Strider, or Ugluk, for instance, or Mauhar, characters that are like useful but not necessarily the best thing in the world, always feel comfortable bringing them to 3 stars, gear 5, level 30. You won't have any problems. When events come out, they'll be at a usable level. When unlock events come out that they might be required for, you're within striking distance of those unlock requirements. So definitely do not feel any fear about making a mistake. As long as you keep it to that threshold and only invest heavy resources into stuff we know is good, you'll be totally fine. So Ironhide is definitely your first guild farm. I would take him to 4 stars. I wouldn't take him to 5 stars, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I would take him to 4 stars, and I would put some considerable gear in him. I would definitely take him to whatever your highest level is, and I would take him to at least gear 6, but hopefully gear 7. You just want him for his utility and his AoEs, his dispel, and his high damage. He'll help you climb arena enough to get some crystal income, right? And before we go on talking about the rest of the characters, I need to stop and talk about crystal income. Yes, of the 3 accounts I have, this is the account where I will be doing testing. So when new characters come out, you want to know where to go. Oh, the event's live. APGAINS is also live testing out characters day 1. Legendary unlocks, this is the place to be. So yes, this example, I do have more crystals than you will as a free-to-play player, but trust me, the other accounts, I know the pain. You're always, always, always in a struggle to have crystals, especially if you're newer and it's hard to climb an arena. Now, the good news is I'm in the Shard of Death, which is going to forever and always be the hardest arena in the entire world. And that's fine. It's going to be great for content. It'll be a long-term investment in the channel and stuff like that. That's totally fine. You're going to be in a newer Shard where the competition won't be as steep. People haven't been playing as long, haven't spent as much money. It'll be much easier for you to climb and get more gems than I will, especially on the accounts that I have. But realistically speaking, you should get around a little over 150 gems per day, give or take, depending on your arena level, depending on a bunch of factors, right? And what you're going to do with 150 of those gems every day is you're going to do 350 gem refreshes on your normal energy, right? Mine are in the hundreds because I've already done my 3. It'll reset in, I don't even know. It doesn't even tell you when stuff's going to reset because everything has a different reset point for some reason. Free-to-play players, I would avoid your guild refreshes. As you see, I did my 3 100s because I have leftover gems from an unlock event. I would avoid those because they're too steep. You're going to have a couple of moments in your account where they're going to gift you, 500, 200, 300 gems for doing various quests, various login bonuses and stuff like that. And those are going to be very important points for you to capture those influx of gems and make big leaps in your account that would otherwise be difficult in your day-to-day grind. And we'll talk about that a little bit here. So now that we understand how the gem flow works, what we should be spending our gems on, let's go back to talking about characters. So obviously we talked about our light side characters with our plug and play. Strider, I don't think Strider is very good. And I know that's a very controversial take, but in the realm of free-to-play players trying to maximize their roster to be good in events that aren't here yet and legendaries that aren't here yet and preparing the best possible way, because yes, I've dealt with CG for fucking too many years and the insider stuff and all that stuff. Like, I get it, Strider. He's got an AoE. He's got okay damage, but he just doesn't really mesh with a lot of stuff right now and doesn't have a ton of direct synergy for free-to-play players. There's some synergy with Rangers and with really, really advanced Road to Rivendell, and yes, Road to Rivendell might actually be useful in the future. If we're talking from a free-to-play perspective, you're not buying the pack that gives you the Road to Rivendell characters. Let me actually pull them up here. You're not buying the pack that gives you all of the hobbits at 4 stars to help you get Sam at 5 stars. You take him 5 stars, and when Legolas comes out and it requires 5-star Road to Rivendell characters, like, that's not realistically something that you're going to be able to do as a free-to-play player, and the characters themselves are not good enough to justify you farming them free-to-play right off the bat, right? So I know there's going to be arguments as far as paid players trying to convince you that that's going to be a strategy, especially coming up, and Legolas is cool and Gimli is cool, and maybe one of them is going to be the legendary for them, and that's totally fine. If there's something that you're really passionate about, farm it. This is a hero collector game. I know I get too much into the weeds about efficiency and viability and min-maxing and doing all that stuff. I get it. That's just who I am. I just love this. I've always been, long-term planning, strategy, and stuff like that. It's just always been something that's been a huge hobby of mine ever since I was a kid. So I nerd out on this kind of stuff. And sometimes I forget that if there's a character you really love, farm them. For me, it's the Nazgul. I promised myself that when the Nazgul come out, I'm going to get them because I just love them. And I just remember, the magic of Lord of the Rings as a kid. My dad reading me the stories when I was like 4, 5, 6. I was scared, but like still cool. And I was trying to imagine what they look like. And then, the Lord of the Rings movie came out, and those were so transformative because I could see them on the big screen. It was fantastic and all that stuff. So I understand all that, right? Totally understand. You have passions, farm those passions. But as far as efficiency is concerned, I think the Strider and the Road to Rivendell, even if they have some cool stuff in the next 6 months, I just don't think it's going to be really viable for free-to-play players. Next, let's skip the L's for a second and talk about what was really popular really early and people have started to realize was kind of a bad idea. Isengard Mordor orcs, not exactly the best investment of all time, and let's talk about that. They have good synergy and stuff like that. Ugluk has an okay lead. It's good for pushing through dark side campaigns and stuff like that, but they're just not very good. They're going to get left behind very quickly because their heals are not going to scale with where the game is going. And, I think the only upside they really have is very, very early game. If you have them at Gear 4, Gear 5, you can progress a little bit into your dark side nodes and unlock hard nodes to farm characters and gear and stuff like that, and that's fine. But they shouldn't be a big focal point of your investment. Like I said, I have Ugluk at 3 stars, but the rest are at 1. But like, see how they're level 30 and they're Gear 5, and I didn't take them past, and that's why I talked about in the beginning of the video. Never feel bad about taking a character, to level 30 Gear 5. It's not that much of an investment. You're not really going to regret it in the long term. You're within striking distance of making them slightly viable if something were to come up, and you can jump on metas if they present themselves. But I wouldn't really work on them too much because you're not going to get a whole lot of bang for your buck from them. We're going to get a meta in the next 6 or so months that's going to be very dark side focused, and they're just not going to be a part of that. Let's go back to the elves. Now, if you're a free-to-play player, you've done a little bit of your Isengard orcs for some levels. You've done a lot into your Rohan, and you've done your plug and play character in Gaz, and maybe you caught one of the Arwen or Elladan marquee characters, so you have like one elf at 3 stars, but they're not going to be free to play farmable for 3 months. You're going to just kind of sit on them and not really do anything. After we have a 4-star Gaz, definitely, Elrohir is also in the guild. Grind him up to 5 stars. After you've grinded him up to 5 stars, Naramiri 5 stars. The reason you're going to do this is you're going to get the rewards for actually doing it, but they're super fast farms, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. After that, you definitely want to put effort into Lomian. I call him Jack because in the beta, he was like one of the only characters that had really high speed, really high damage, and had access to the Nimble ability, which is basically evasion from Galaxy of Heroes, where if they attack you, you can't be hit. So I'd always be like, oh, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, because we were #1 player in the world, and people would just always go up against our Lomian, who was super highly leveled for some reason. And I was like watching people stream fighting me, and they just couldn't hit him because it was just the beta was broken, and it was fun, and it was fantastic. So if I refer to him as Jack in the future, just understand that's where that comes from. So at this point, you have 2 5-star characters, which is, 2/5 of the way to getting Elrond, and the Elrond event will be 3 to 6 months from whenever this video comes out, when it comes back. So probably like 4.5 months to like 7 months or something like that. He is one of the characters where if you're already like level 30 at the time of watching this video, I'm doing the 25 crystal refresh, and I'm even doing this on my free-to-play accounts as well. I'm farming his 5 hard nodes, and I'm getting 2 to 6 of them a day, and then I am doing the 25 gem refresh on the free-to-play accounts as well as the main account to get an extra run at him, because he is going to take slightly longer. And then on my free-to-play accounts, what I plan on doing is when Arwen and Elladan become free-to-play farmable, grinding them up via hard or guild nodes wherever they happen to be, grinding them up to 5 stars and allowing myself to be eligible to get the Elrond event. So definitely after you've done your Rohan, your plug-and-play character in Gaz, a little bit of Isengard Orc just to progress through levels, get gear and stuff like that, you should definitely start to invest in these elven characters. Now, as far as gear investment is concerned, you can maybe hold off on gear as a free-to-play player, because it's going to take you a long fucking time to get these characters. And yes, Elrond's going to be good, and hopefully he's going to be good in the raid or in other game modes. He's definitely going to be arena viable, that's for sure. The elves without Elrond aren't that good. It remains to be seen how good Elladan is. I think I'm a little biased right now because almost all of the elves they have bugs, so they don't actually work how they're supposed to. So, maybe they're a little bit better when they actually work properly, but without Elrond, they're not super great. So I would continue to put gear and stuff like that into Rohan just to keep progressing through light side and stuff like that. I'd say realistically, don't bring any of your Rohan past gear 7, and then once they're gear 7 across the board, you can start putting all your resources into elves. It's going to really work out timing-wise as a free-to-play player from the long Elrond farm. So you have your Rohan for kind of like your early game, like levels 1 to like 40, and then like 45 to 55, 60-ish, depending on how long it takes you. Probably 55. You're really in elves, and that 55 to 60 is going to be fine-tuning Elrond and preparing for Nazgul meta and stuff like that. So don't feel afraid to like not worry about gearing them. A lot of it's just about getting them to 5 stars and getting yourself ready for that Elrond event. And if you're watching this in the future or watching this right now and you want to know what like the minimum requirements are to actually unlock Elrond, obviously they have to be at least 5 stars, but like what level do they have to be? What gear tier do they have to be? I will have done day 1 testing the minute the event comes out, and I will excruciatingly figure out what the minimum gear level unlock is for Elrond, so that you can go and reference that video that's going to be obviously more recent on the YouTube channel and be like, okay, I know that I need them at level 43, 3 of them need to be gear tier 6, 2 need to be gear tier 5, and I can get them with some good RNG or whatever it happens to be. You know that I will provide you with that information, because that's something that I'm very much known for, is figuring out those minimum gear unlocks, especially with like ability materials and stuff like that, because ability materials are expensive, and you don't want to waste them. So I will definitely help you guys figure all that out. So that leaves us with the Haradrim. Now, if levels 1 to 35 are Rohan, and levels 35 to 55 is elves, 55 and beyond is Haradrim. Now, Haradrim are characters that are data mined, which, is in the game, so it's accurate, but it's CG likes to mess up timing for those guys who don't, have never been part of a CG beta program or, had access to all that stuff. A lot of what they put into the game, they test out internally, not a ton, but like a lot of it's just like ideation, like this could happen. So a lot of stuff that comes out, especially from the people who run like these big Discord servers that do a lot of the leaks and stuff like that. A lot of it's like, oh, I heard this, and then everyone thinks, oh, this is coming right now. It's in game, and that kind of reinforces it. A lot of it's just ideation and stuff that come out in the future. So we don't know for sure if the Haradrim are going to be used to unlock Witch King or whatever. But what we do know is the Haradrim kits are good nonetheless. They have, if you've played Galaxy of Heroes, they're like the Phoenix characters. And I know the Phoenix sucks now, but back when the Phoenix was out, originally they were fantastic. They share passive abilities. They have good speed, good damage, good utility. This is going to kind of be that third or fourth team, talking about raids, talking about guild PvP and stuff like that, where you're going to have a really strong team, but until we know for sure that they're required for Witch King, who is going to absolutely be the meta, I would say this is probably like a level 55 to 60 kind of farm. I'm farming them up because, like I said, Nazgul is my passion project, and I will do anything in my power, whether free-to-play or otherwise, to get those characters, because that's what I love. And if you're with me and you love the Nazgul, definitely, follow along there as well. But as far as free-to-play is concerned, you have to be very careful with what you're farming. And yes, you can take them to your 3 stars, level 30, gear 5. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. So don't feel ashamed if you happen to do that. But I'm still a little cautiously optimistic about them for the free-to-play grind. So we've talked about the Rohan, the plug-and-play characters, the Isengard, the Elves, the Haradrim now. Let's finish off with kind of like a little bonus a little bonus tip. And it's something that's kind of funny, actually. So we talked about the pay-to-play characters, the gem characters. Obviously, Troll Brute's like the ultimate whale character. He's like good damage, good utility, a stun. It's fantastic. AoEs. Eldred is 450 gems to unlock, which is a lot, especially for me on my accounts that are in the Death Shard, where I'm getting 50 crystals a day, and I get like 152 gems a day. Just enough to do my refreshes, and occasionally I'll hit a quest like once a week that'll give me another 100 or something like that. But there will be a point where they'll give you 500 for free, and I definitely think unlocking Eldred at 1 star is going to be worth it for those 500 gems, and hear me out. The light side characters have heals in Naramiri and stuff like that, but it's going to be a while before you can get her, and her heal is good, but it's not fantastic. And I think actually as the elf meta evolves more, I think this take I'm about to give you is going to become less and less viable, but it's something that I'm passionate about now because I love the Rohirrim and stuff like that. So hear me out, and this is why this is kind of like a bonus. This is like, use your own discretion if you think this is actually going to be a good thing or not. It's just something that was effective early, and it's kind of waning a little bit, and I'm just trying to test the waters and see where it is. He has great heals. He has, passive heals when people drop low. He's got a heal that gives regeneration and stuff like that. He has a big heal that does a lot of healing as well. And he really helps you get 3 stars on pesky nodes that require humans and challenges. And light side nodes that are hard if you need them to get, crystals, or you need them to get a specific character that you want to farm. He's helpful. Now that the elves are important and Namiri is now on a guild node, she wasn't before, she's a lot easier to get. And her healing is not as good, but it is still good, right? So if you're at the point where you've invested in her a lot and you still don't have Eldred for whatever reason, I would stick with her. You're not going to get as much healing, but she does have lots of great viability, and she's a fantastic character, so don't feel bad. A lot of people originally were going like Pippin and stuff like that. It's just hogwash. Pippin sucks. Don't really fall into that trap of giving Pippin a lot of gear and stuff like that. Yes, he has a heal, but it's just not as good as the other ones, and definitely not as good free-to-play value. So nice little bonus tip for you there. Pick your healer. We love the Rohirrim here. We love the Nazgul. So we're waiting for King Theoden, and I'm just waiting for my 1-star Eldred to need to be called up to 5 stars, and hopefully he's on a node by then, so you can farm him free to play. But I can't wait to see like King Theoden riding his horse as a large character, legendary unlock, and I have all my Rohirrim at 5-7 stars, gear 8 or whatever, and then he's just right there like 1 star. It's like, hey, give me like $100 worth of gems to get me to 5 stars. And I'm like, God damn it, Capo Games, why are you doing this to me? It's a nice little bonus tip for you there. In summation, that's going to be your completely 100% optimal way to do all of this stuff. So, I've kind of laid the groundwork for you. This is obviously the best place for testing, unlock events, minimum gear requirements for certain events, as well as, news and other stuff like that. So if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe. We are trying to get I want to get 28,000 subscribers by the end of June. I think that would be fantastic. If you guys want to help out with that, that would be awesome. Yeah, thank you for everyone who's joined me. As always, I love you, and I will see you later. Hopefully the audio isn't fucked up because this is like my second take.